5 days ago, July 11th, 2026, a major new law quietly went into effect in this country, and I mean quietly. Most people have absolutely no idea it happened. Usually when a big housing bill passes, it dominates the news cycle. But the coverage sticks to mortgage rates, developer incentives, whatever Wall Street cares about that week. The parts that actually touch everyday people, especially older Americans, those get buried or they don't get covered at all. Not this time. Because buried inside this law are a handful of things that could genuinely change your situation. And I mean that seriously. I'm talking about grant money for home repairs, money you never pay back, new options if you've been trying to downsize and just can't find anywhere to go, real protections if you're renting, meaningful help for rural areas dealing with a brutal housing shortage, new pathways to low-cost mortgages, and one provision that's going to matter enormously for your kids or grandkids when they try to buy their first home. 6 things total, and by the end of this video, you'll understand every one of them, in plain English. No legal jargon, no confusion. Here's the part that really gets me, though. Surveys consistently show that about 75% of adults 50 and older say they want to stay in their current home as they age. 75%. And yet millions of those same people are stuck. Stuck because repairs they can't afford are piling up. Stuck because there's nowhere smaller to move into. Stuck because rent keeps rising while their Social Security check barely moves at all. This bill was built with those people in mind, people like you, people you love. So stay with me because what's coming in the next few minutes could genuinely be worth thousands of dollars to you or someone in your family. And I promise, it's not what you'd expect from Congress. Let's start with what this actually is. The bill is H.R. 6644, formerly called the 21st Century Road to Housing Act. It became law on July 11th, just 2 days ago. President Trump chose not to sign it over a political disagreement with Congress. It didn't matter. The bill had so much support that it became law anyway. In the Senate, it passed 85-5. In the House, 358-32. You will not find another bill in recent memory with that kind of bipartisan agreement. Almost nobody voted against it because the crisis it's addressing is so severe that opposing it was politically almost impossible. And here's the scale of that crisis. The White House's own economists estimate the country is short roughly 10 million homes. That gap is a big reason prices have climbed so fast, why renting has gotten so brutal, why first-time buyers can't get a foothold, and why seniors trying to sell a big house and downsize can't find anywhere smaller to land. One more number worth remembering. More than 12.4 million households headed by someone 65 or older, about 34% of all older households, spend over 30% of their income just on housing. In the industry, that's called being cost-burdened. So roughly a third of older American households are cost-burdened right now, today. That's who this bill was actually written for. Before I get into the 6 pieces, I want to flag something that genuinely caught me off guard reading through the full text. There's a provision most people haven't heard about yet that's going to matter a lot if you own your home, and I'll get to it shortly. But first, let's start with the part I think matters most to seniors who just want to stay exactly where they are. This is the one I find genuinely exciting, and here's why. At the heart of this law is something called the Whole Home Repairs Pilot Program, a federally funded initiative built specifically to help lower-income homeowners, seniors above all, afford the repairs that let them keep living in their homes safely. What kind of repairs are we talking about? Grab bars in the bathroom, ramps where there used to be steps, wider doorways for wheelchairs or walkers, weatherization, insulation, ceiling drafts, anything that lowers the energy bill, removing hazards like lead paint or mold, and major structural fixes, roofing, electrical, heating, the kind of thing that turns into an emergency if it sits too long. None of this is cosmetic. These are the repairs that can be the difference between staying safely in your own home or ending up in a hospital or a facility before you're ready. It's structured as a grant, meaning qualifying homeowners don't pay it back. It's aimed at low-income households, with eligibility tied to local median income levels. Since it's still rolling out, the exact dollar amounts and application steps are being finalized state by state. But here's the bigger point. The federal government is putting real money behind the idea that seniors who want to age in place deserve support to do it safely. This isn't a talking point. It's funded, it's law, and it's happening right now. Given that 75% of older adults say they'd rather stay home, this program is about as direct an answer to that as I've seen in a major housing bill. So here's my advice. Keep an eye on your local area agency on aging and your state's housing finance agency. Those are the offices that will run this program locally, and they'll be first to announce when applications open and how to qualify. 2. If you'd rather downsize. Maybe staying put isn't your goal. Maybe the kids are grown and gone, you don't need 4 bedrooms anymore, and you just want something smaller and easier to manage. If that's you, this next part might feel like Congress finally listened. One of the most common complaints I hear constantly is, "I want to downsize, but there's nothing smaller out there." That's not an exaggeration. In most of the country, the supply of smaller, affordable homes is thin, and this bill actually attacks a few of the reasons why. It encourages accessory dwelling units, those small secondary units sometimes called in-law suites or backyard cottages. It encourages duplexes, townhomes, and converting vacant buildings into housing. And it modernizes and expands support for manufactured and modular homes. That last one gets overlooked constantly. Manufactured homes, what a lot of people still picture as trailers, have changed enormously over the past 2 decades. Today's manufactured and modular homes are well-built, energy efficient, and significantly cheaper than a traditional site-built house. Historically, though, they've been hard to finance because lenders treated them differently, and they've run into unnecessary zoning restrictions in plenty of communities. This law fixes a lot of that. It updates financing rules, raises loan limits, funds repair and preservation of manufactured home communities, and cuts barriers that have kept this affordable option from spreading, especially in rural areas, where the shortage is worst and manufactured housing makes the most sense. On top of that, empty commercial and industrial buildings will get converted into housing through a new pilot program. Think about every vacant office tower, dead mall, or shuttered factory you've driven past. There's a staggering amount of unused space in this country, and this law helps turn some of it into homes, including affordable ones. What does that mean if downsizing is your goal? Over the next several years, expect more options, more variety, more price points, in more communities you'd actually want to live in. It won't happen overnight, but the direction is set, and the money is real. Now let's talk about renting, because there's one piece here that's genuinely overdue. A lot of seniors rent, and renting on a fixed income right now is genuinely hard. Rents have surged nearly everywhere, and the people hit hardest are the ones on fixed incomes, where the Social Security check barely moves while rent climbs a couple $100s a year. That gap compounds fast. This bill does 3 concrete things for renters. First, it expands the Housing Choice Voucher Program, what most people call Section 8, by raising the rental assistance demonstration cap by 100,000 units. That means more federally assisted housing, more people actually getting vouchers, and new provisions making it easier for landlords to accept them. That last part matters because one of the biggest complaints about the voucher program has always been landlords simply refusing them. This law works to shrink that barrier. Second, it focuses on preserving public and rural rental housing that already exists, units currently at risk of converting to market rate or getting sold off. Losing affordable units does just as much damage as failing to build new ones, and this bill treats that seriously. Third, and this is the one I really want you to hear, the bill sets up a formal complaint process for tenants of large corporate landlords. Here's why this matters. In recent years, big investment firms have bought up tens of thousands of rental units. And when a massive corporation owns your building and something goes wrong, the heat's broken, your lease isn't honored, they're raising rent in ways that don't feel right, you don't have much leverage, they've got legal teams, you've got a letter written at your kitchen table. This new system gives renters somewhere to actually go, a federal channel to document and escalate problems with corporate landlords. It's not a magic fix, but it didn't exist before, and it's an acknowledgement that the power gap between a billion-dollar landlord and a retiree on a fixed income is a real problem worth fixing. Here's where things shift. Everything so far has been about staying put or renting. This next part matters if you've owned your home for years, and it matters even more for your kids and grandkids. I think it might genuinely surprise you. You've probably noticed big investment firms buying up single-family homes by the thousands, not to live in, but to rent out, tighten supply, and push prices up. And it's worked. Part of why home prices have climbed so fast isn't only a shortage of new construction, it's that a large chunk of available homes get snapped up by institutional investors before ordinary buyers ever get a shot. Here's what this law does about it. Any company or investment group controlling at least 350 single-family homes will generally be barred from buying more existing homes. That restriction kicks in 180 days after the law took effect, so full enforcement lands around January 2027. I'll be straight with you, there are ways to work around this. A group of 10 wealthy investors who used to pool their money could, in theory, split up and each individually buy up to 350 homes. Congress knows this, and if they see people gaming the rule, I'd expect a tighter follow-up bill down the road. Also worth knowing, nobody's being forced to sell homes they already own. This only restricts future purchases. so the effect builds slowly, not overnight. But here's the likely long-term outcome. As institutional buyers pull back, more existing homes open up for individual buyers. Your kids, your grandkids, first-time buyers who've been outbid over and over by cash offers from companies they've never even heard of. That pattern has discouraged an entire generation of would-be homeowners, and this law is aimed squarely at reversing it. One more piece tied to homeownership worth flagging, because it's clever and barely anyone's talking about it: a pilot program for small-dollar mortgages, loans of $100,000 or less, which may include help with down payments, closing costs, appraisals, and title insurance. Sounds small, but think about who benefits: seniors buying a modest home in a smaller market, or anyone who just needs a smaller loan to close a gap. Lenders have historically avoided these loans because they're not profitable enough to bother with. This pilot exists to fix that. Last piece, and it matters most if you live outside a big city, in a rural area, a small town, or a suburb that hasn't seen much new construction in years. A central goal of this law is cutting the red tape that makes it hard to build. That breaks down into two things. First, zoning reform. HUD is now required to publish guidelines and best practices to help states and local governments modernize outdated zoning rules. In plain terms, a lot of towns still have rules on the books allowing only large single-family homes on a given lot. No duplexes, no townhomes, no small apartment buildings. Those rules made sense decades ago. They make a lot less sense with a 10 million home shortage. This law pushes communities to update them so builders can build more, faster, in more places. Second, faster approvals. The law streamlines certain federal environmental reviews for infill development, building on land that's already developed, and for federally supported housing projects. Approvals that used to take years can now move much faster, which brings construction costs down and eventually means more affordable homes for buyers and renters alike. And then there's manufactured and modular housing again, which matters enormously in rural communities. In a lot of rural areas, literally nothing is being built. No new apartment complex, no new subdivision. But there is land, and manufactured homes can go on that land affordably. This bill removes a lot of the financing and regulatory hurdles that have held that back for years. None of this zoning and construction reform is something you'll feel next week. These changes play out over years, but the direction is unmistakable. More housing in more places at more price points, which eventually eases pressure across the entire market, seniors included. Here's the 21st Century Road to Housing Act, H.R. 6644, law as of July 11, 2026, laid out clean. 1. Grant funding to age in place safely through the whole home repairs pilot, grab bars, ramps, wider doorways, weatherization, major repairs. Watch your local area agency on aging for details. 2. More downsizing options through accessory dwelling units, duplexes, townhomes, manufactured housing, and converted commercial buildings. 3. Stronger renter protections, 100,000 more voucher units, preserved affordable housing, and a new complaint system for tenants of corporate landlords. 4. Support for rural communities through expanded manufactured and modular housing financing. 5. Restrictions on Wall Street's home buying, starting 180 days out, opening up more homes for individual and first-time buyers. 6. Less red tape, zoning reform, faster approvals, and small-dollar mortgage pilots to get homes built and financed faster. I'll be honest with you, this bill isn't perfect. That 180-day delay before the Wall Street restrictions kick in is frustrating. The workarounds wealthy investors could use around the 350-home threshold are a real concern, and programs like the whole home repairs pilot still need to be rolled out locally, which takes time. But here's what's also true. This is the most substantive, most genuinely bipartisan housing bill this country has passed in a long time. 85-5 in the Senate. 358-32 in the House. That is not a close call. The people we sent to Washington looked at this crisis, what it's doing to seniors, to renters, to first-time buyers, to rural communities, and actually agreed on something. That almost never happens anymore. And what they agreed on is that something had to change. For you. For people like you. These provisions only help the people who actually know they exist. So if this was useful, share it. Send it to someone quietly struggling with a repair they can't afford, or a family member frustrated trying to find something smaller, or a grandkid who's been priced out of buying their first home. That's the most useful thing you can do with this video. Drop your questions in the comments. I read every single one, and they shape what I cover next. If you want me to go deeper on any of this, the manufactured housing rules, the voucher program, how small dollar mortgages actually work in practice. Tell me, and I'll make that video. Like this one, subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss what's next, and I'll see you soon.